Welcome. Thank you for being here. Warms my heart to see you out there. Because we are in this together. We are walking this journey together. And I've been thinking a lot about that. And I've been thinking about how all our lives we're walking this journey together with all these different people. And sometimes the pearls are really right in front of our eyes, and they're easy to see. Like when I married Ash, right? She walked down the aisle to a Led Zeppelin tune just for me. Come on, man. I mean, what a moment. I was like, wow. Yeah. Or when my son was born and he comes out of his mother right into my hands. I mean, these are moments that are easy to get the pearl. And then, life goes on and there's these other moments where the pearl isn't so obvious. Like with the same people. Right? I'm deep in thought, working on something, and Ash comes in and says, hey, I need your help. I need you to come right now to help me do something. And maybe my reaction to that isn't the most enlightened. All of a sudden, the same person who I was like, wow, it now feels like I'm annoyed. Maybe I'm the only one that's happened to with somebody you really care about. Am I the only one? Or my, yes. Or my son, right? When he was wailing at the petting zoo when he was like 2 and he's on the ground and he's kicking and screaming his feet. Maybe my reaction wasn't the same as the wow when he came out into my hands, right? Maybe you've had that thing with these kids that you adore, and then they become teenagers, and you're wondering, did they really come from me? Is this the same child? But, then life goes on, and we get back with that. So we have these, with the same people who we've been walking this journey together with, these different responses at different times because we forget. We forget so easily. We forget that this is a God being. This is a God being right before me. One that I have had all these incredible pearls with at other times. We forget. And so the object of the game is to remember. The work is to remember. Remember as often as we can. This is that same person who was willing to walk down the aisle with the Led Zeppelin, just for me. And so looking at it that way really can transform it in that moment of who we're walking with. Now, again, that's really easy with even that is easier. Then we get to, let's go to another degree of separation, right? Where there are these people out there who we don't know, who maybe we judge because we think we know them by something they've done. If you're on the far left, anybody who liked Trump, you think you know them and judge them. And anybody who's on the far right, anybody who's woke, you're calling woke, you think you know them. There's this great movie called The Breakfast Club. I'm a movie freak. I love movies. And so The Breakfast Club, have you heard of that movie? It's about 5 teenagers in high school who wind up on a Saturday, I forget what detention. Thank you, that's the word. Saturday morning detention, so they wind up having to be together, and every single one of them is from a different clique, a different, a way of being in the world, and they've all judged each other so deeply. The nerd, the jock, the cheerleader, queen, the bad boy, and the weird girl. Right? They all start out, very sitting as far apart from each other as humanly possible. Maybe you've done that. You've gone down, been in a room and you look around and you go, I don't know these people. And I've done it, where I'll sit in the back right corner as far away from everybody as possible, since I had to, be there anyway. And maybe I'm the only one who's done that. Separated ourselves out, and throughout the movie they get to know each other better, and they get to know that actually all the way they can have compassion for each other and depth with each other, and realize that they're not so different, and that they walk this journey together, and it enlivened them all. And that's what we miss out a lot when we don't take that kind of time to recognize that everybody in the room with us, they're God too. We miss out on all those opportunities when there's somebody who's different from ourselves, whether it's politically or racially or sexually or whatever. Whatever your freak out point is, in terms of avoidance point is, if you have one, if there's people out there you're resistant to, they have something for you because they're God too. They have something for you. We all have something for each other in ways that we can't even recognize. Ernest Holmes quote, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not going to, is I live in the faith that there is a power in the universe that supports and nurtures me beyond my imagination. And I interpret that, in the way I speak about it, as our soul's intention. This power isn't something outside ourselves, it's inside ourselves, and it's guiding us. And if we wind up in a situation where we're in front of people that make us uncomfortable, they're there for a reason. And that reason is simply to help us get more in touch with our own soul's intention. There's something there for us. There's a nugget, there's a pearl, and we could miss that pearl if we don't take that opportunity. And sometimes you're like, okay, I don't mind missing an opportunity, I'm out of here. Am I the only one? But if we take that extra step of going, wait a minute, maybe there's something here. Since I'm the one that's uncomfortable, that means I'm the student. You've heard me say that before. So that means there's something here for me to learn. There's a place for me to grow here with this uncomfortability I'm having with these people that in this moment I am journeying with. Because whoever we're journeying with in that moment is who we're journeying with. That's who we're journeying together with. They're there. They're there for the reason, and everybody, I've heard people say, oh, it must be some reason, but I'm telling you that I'm here to say today that the reason is to help us get more in touch with our soul's intention. That resistance of the need to avoid, the desire to avoid, that I'm not dealing with this. There's something there. Because that's what we're all doing. We're all God beings. It's not as if, I know there are people that feel anybody who voted for Trump is everything's God except for those who did that. Or everything's God, if you're a Trump voter, everything's God except those who didn't vote for him. I mean, I know I'm using politics in the States instead of Canada, but you got to realize I haven't even been here a year yet, and I'm still just getting into what Canada politics are about. So for now, this is what I got for you in terms of analogies like this. But you get the idea, right? You get the idea that there's something there, and they're God too, which means that there's power, there's presence, there's magnificence that maybe I can't see, but because I haven't taken the time to take a deeper look. And if I did, the enrichment of that in our lives I mean, that could be really something. This week I saw a movie that just came out on Amazon Prime. It was called A Million Miles Away. And it's about a Mexican who became the first immigrant farmer to make it into space, to become an astronaut and make it into space. And the movie starts, and I fact-checked it, and it's pretty darn on in terms of the facts it's giving about how this unfolded over this gentleman's life. Jose Hernandez is his name. And I looked at all the different people, because I'm thinking about this talk while I'm watching this movie, all the different people who impacted his life. And some, it could really look like negative ways, but given in the end he got exactly what he was after, that means that all of it was just the opportunities he needed to grow in the way he did to get to where he wound up. So he starts out in Mexico. That's where he was born. And back then, they came into the States to do farming. It wasn't, crossing the border wasn't like it is today. This was before border crossing became so difficult at that point. Bringing in migrant workers to farm, to help, plant and then help harvest was common. And so his parents were part of that, and they came across and they went back. And there was this one teacher who kept noticing whenever this kid showed up, when he was like in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, that he was brilliant. He was really brilliant. So the teacher took the time to go speak to the parents and say, you may want to not be moving around so much. This kid's got something special if he gets the opportunity to do so. Touch points you don't even see coming, right? In terms of how we're interacting, who we're journeying with in the world. And so the teacher actually convinces the parents to stay in the States and settle down and find a way to do that. And they do, and they all become citizens and find their way. And so Jose Hernandez, he becomes an engineer. He graduates college as an engineer and gets a job at an engineer at a firm where they're building lasers. And his first day on the job, they thought he was the janitor, because he was Mexican. And all the engineers who were white looked at him and said, you have nothing to contribute here. They never gave him a chance. This is who he was. This is who he was journeying with. And so it was hard. He kept at it. And one day he had a shot when he was looking. They were having him do things like be the office boy. So he went and made Xerox copies of stuff for them. That's all they'd let him do, because he was Mexican. And then one day he's looking over what he's copying and realizing there's a mistake in the math, and it's about lasers, which could be a big deal. And so he runs the numbers and then brings it to his boss and says, here, I think there's a mistake here. You better look at this, because you're missing, the calculations are off, and this could be a real problem. It could blow up, basically. And they checked it out, and the boss, he was like livid that all his white engineers had missed this. And so this was his big break. And so then he got to move forward in the company until finally he was the one teaching others about engineering when they first came into the firm and led on projects. When he was a little kid, his teacher had asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he said an astronaut. Now he's an engineer, and he still wants to be an astronaut. So he applies to NASA to be an astronaut, and he's turned down year after year after year. These people who are journeying with him, even though he doesn't even get to see them, are impacting his life. You may have people impacting your life you don't even get to see. And yet they are. And how we hold that, how we are with that, when we recognize that whoever we're journeying with is there for our highest and best, to move us into being our highest and best. That's the purpose of the exercise. That's why we journey together. That's why it's happening all the time anyway. One day his wife, who was a very big impact on his life, asked him, after 6 years of being rejected by NASA, goes, what do these people have that you don't have? And his first answer, of course, was, well, they're all white. He says, okay. She goes, okay, but what else? What else? And then, well, they can fly. They have their pilot's license. They have their scuba diving license. They can speak other languages, and it turns out that in the last group, they picked 3 people who spoke Russian. And she said, then do those things. And so now he's got other touch points. He's now journeying with others. His teacher who's teaching him how to fly. His teacher who's teaching him how to scuba dive. And he keeps applying year after year after year, and he keeps being rejected until he has 800 hours in the air. He has, I don't know how many hours scuba diving. And his boss now respects him so deeply, the change has been so dramatic at his firm, that when an opportunity comes up to look at to be one of the people who checks out nuclear facilities in Russia, he's the one sent and gets to learn Russian. You just don't know, right? Where all the touch points. Why are you journeying with the people you're journeying with? You don't even know. You can think you know. But because I know that there is a power in me that is so nurturing and so supportive that it's beyond my imagination, I know that whatever shows up in my life is for my good. Even if it doesn't feel that way. Even when I was in the hospital where they were saying, you may be dead by the end of the day, I knew that somehow that was for my good. I didn't know how. Well, I'm lying there in the hospital bed, but that isn't what's relevant. It's being in that place of having that level of faith and realizing that the people before you, it may feel like they're out to get you. It may feel like they're out to put you down, to stop you, but that isn't the case. They are your opportunities to rise, to become greater than you have been, because you are. We are constantly confronted with the facts that we are so much stronger than we think we are. We are so much more powerful beyond our imagination. When it became his 12th year to give in his application, his wife said, don't mail it this time, bring it to him. Go down there. And so he flew down there. He met the person who was in charge of the program, because he said he wasn't leaving until he got that opportunity. And they all knew who he was. He'd been applying for 12 years. This was his 12th year. And sure enough, he got in that year. Now he's in the program. The astronaut program's you can be in the astronaut program. You know, they've got hundreds of astronauts that never make it into space. So now he had to be better than all these other astronauts to be in the top tier, to be one that they actually picked to go up. More opportunities. And he did it. He did it. Spent 13 days on the... Thank you. That thing floating around the earth that people stay on all the time. The International Space Station. The way we are connected, the way we are entangled with each other is so deeper than we even realize. There's so much going on that we don't even realize. All the things I've gone through in my life, and I think they led me to here. They led me to you. I wouldn't have changed a thing. It wasn't easy. And I'm sure some of you have led lives that weren't easy. That's right. But they led you to where you are now, and all those people were touch points. We're traveling that road together, giving us an opportunity to become who we are now, all the time. And we are more entangled than we can even comprehend. There was this experiment done. It's called the Boson-Higgs experiment. They took two particles. They put them in very close proximity to each other. They called it entangled. And they separated them and they shot them in separate directions. And then they found that when they did something to one of them, the other one responded instantaneously, no matter how far apart they were. And so at some university got the idea that that's really cool. Let's try to test and see how this works in more of, human type situation. And so they gathered some meditators, some people who had been meditating for decades and, meditated hours a day. And they brought them together, about 40 of them, I think. And what they did is they took, randomly, they picked two. And they had them meditate together for 20 minutes. And what they were told to meditate on was being one with each other. At the end of 20 minutes, they were stuck in separate rooms, what are called Faraday rooms, which are rooms that do not allow in any physical types of energy. And they were both hooked up to EKGs. Watching the mind waves. And then one of them was hit with a strobe. And every time he was hit with the strobe, and it was a random strobe, it wasn't regular, his EKG shot up. At the exact same instant, so did the other person's. These were not people who knew each other well. They had just meditated together 20 minutes. This one shot up, that one shot up exactly together. They did this experiment over and over and over, and it kept working. We are entangled more than we know. So I got the idea when I was in ministerial school that experiment, that's where I'd heard about this, was so cool, I wanted to try something like it myself. I didn't have a Faraday room, but what I did have was these two things I had to do to graduate, that were part of being to graduate ministerial school. I had to take care of. One was putting on a retreat for practitioners, and the second one was attending a silent retreat. And I thought, kill two birds with one stone. I'll put on a silent retreat for practitioners. And so what I did was I set up with another minister. We had 18 ministers, 18 practitioners that day. And I set up in a whole day's worth of having them paired work together and go around and have to silently pass through all these different, I'd set up like a odyssey where they had to travel together all day and work out different obstacles. At the end of the day, I had them meditate together for 20 minutes on oneness, and then sat them back to back, and in front of them was a cloth, and the cloth was picked up, there was two of us, so we picked up the cloth at the exact same time, and there were 5 different objects to choose from and they were told to reach down and pick up one. And 7 out of the 9 couples picked the same object. 7 out of 9. It was extraordinary. We are connected more than we realize. There's more going on here. The butterfly effect you've heard about. All of us sitting in this room are here for a reason to be together. Everywhere you go, the people you meet, the person who cuts you off in front of you, it's all about, they're there for a reason, to bring you another opportunity to recognize the oneness of what is going on here. We are so entangled. All of us traveling this journey together. And the more we can, recognize that, remember that, be with that, the more we are in touch with this power that is so nurturing, so supportive. It is beyond our imagination. Thank you. I love you.